Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and today I am in Santa Monica, California at the AI Vibes Summit held by Tal Navarro, and we're having all kinds of fun. I just watched this amazing performance, amazing panel, and I was able to snag Richard Titus right off of the stage for an interview. First off, Titus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so you just came off of a panel. We were talking about music, AI, technology. Before we get into the panel, what brings you to the AI Summit in general?
Well, those three areas are things that I've been passionate about for most of my life. I began my professional career as a musician. I was a signed recording artist on Elektra. When I was 17, I was in a metal band. We toured a bit, and then we got dropped, which is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. It probably prevented me from being a drug addict. And the other thing music did for me is it introduced me to computers, because there was something called MIDI that was invented in the 1970s, 1980s, and it was a system and a standard that allowed you to hook a computer up to an electronic keyboard to make music.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning for me of a journey around technology transformation, which has lasted 40 years at this point. I've led businesses at like the BBC and the Daily Mail, and founded companies like Razorfish, Schematic, and 19 other startups before the one I'm working on now called Kimono, which is my 20th startup. And this conference is my role on the panel is Aiz, who's the piano player, and I have done a few talks where she does her piano bit, and then we talk about AI, creativity, and innovation. And then Scott Page and I know each other from the Beach Boys, Pink Floyd days. I work for the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And so that panel was, and actually Sandra and I know each other from Europe. So we have I knew all of the panelists, and I have had long
Come
histories together.
on.
It was really funny.
Yeah. Okay, so that explains the comfortability, because I'm sitting here looking at it, I'm like, why does it feel like these people, everybody knows each other? Like, I'm the new one here.
Scott and I met backstage at a Beach Boys show
Stop.
40 years ago.
And so one of the things that I found interesting, not just about the panel, but about the conference, is when we think about AI and creativity and how those two things meld, and specifically what we were talking about was the music panel. Where do you stand on that? Well,
it's really interesting. So my history around technology and creativity, as we said, goes back to literally my childhood. And I'm very, very neurodiverse. So I have what's called dysnumeria, which means I can barely count. I can't do basic addition. If you tell me your phone number, the only thing I know is I won't know your phone number. If you and I try and schedule an appointment, I will screw it up at least 6 times. And with language, I struggle. Like, I'm talking, I'm fine, but written word, I end up writing like Yoda, like everything's in the wrong order. And so technology for me was a way of expressing myself that allowed me to manifest a more powerful way of expressing myself. That said, what's interesting about AI is, for the first time ever, the machines, and I call it sort of human and machine just to differentiate. One's made and one is organically evolved. That may change in time. This is the first time for our whole lives technology has been across the table from us as a tool that we, the humans, control, interface, manipulate to make things. What's happening now is, first, the technology, the machine, moved across the table and is sitting in the creator seat with us as a co-creator. And then in some cases, there's some new applications where the machine is hiring humans to augment its inability to do a task or to learn something. And so this gets really, really to the core for us as human beings of what it means to be human. We have, for thousands of years, identified our ability to be superior to animal and machine. It's like in the Bible, it's in the Declaration of Independence. And suddenly, that is no longer necessarily the case, and we can project, because we as humans are really good at predicting in very odd ways, the pattern matching from where we are today to a future where machines are better than us at most things, I think is really deeply disconcerting to the human condition and to us as a species. And me as well, by the way. The first time I saw ChatGPT 2 very, very early on, I was terrified. I've actually now sort of moved to a different place, which is I think we just have to rethink what it means to be human. And in many ways, the things it means to be human are less about specific skills and more about our ability to context switch and interface between non-linear connections. All of the things we've been taught to do, our education system, everything, teaches us to do series of linear instructions. I mean, David Wolfram gave this great talk at one of the first TED events ever. He said, we teach young children mathematics, like addition, subtraction, where a calculator is so inexpensive now, every desktop could have a calculator. We should be teaching computer science in grade 1, not addition and subtraction. And I actually agree with him. Our education system has continued to create industrial workers in an information work economy. And that is actually the biggest problem with our society right now, is we are about to eliminate a whole bunch of linear and non-interesting jobs, and we don't have enough jobs that are other kinds of jobs, and we haven't trained a workforce or a society to embrace those skills. In fact, we punish them. Artists are like the least compensated members of society,
right?
And it turns out they're the most important, right behind nursing or caregivers, which is also a category we don't reward very much.
Well, when you think about AI and how quick with some of the tools it is to create things in general, whether it's music or otherwise, I have this discussion with my friends all the time. So quantity versus quality, using AI for music and artists being able to put something out there without fully developing or things like that. Like, what's your thought?
I'm going to challenge, first of all, the word create and the word iterate are not the same thing. They're not synonyms. And I don't believe I've ever seen a machine yet create from a standing start. I have seen them iterate at a phenomenal level.
Yeah.
And iteration is a thing that we often blurred with creation, which it is absolutely not.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, I think a lot of iterators pretended to be creators for long periods of time. I mean, I would argue I love the blues is one of my favorite kinds of music. I went to a Willie Nelson, John Cougar concert last night, and watching those guys play the blues is like, and thinking about how they stole it from like African Americans in America in the 1930s. That iteration, that constant iteration, evolution, that's a thing that we considered a primary human pursuit. And machines are now competing with us in that area.
Yeah.
What they can't compete in is standing start creativity. And they're only as smart as the inputs. And so we have to start rethinking, what does it mean to train a machine? You have to figure out what is the training data that's going to derive a result that's unexpected or delightful or powerful or useful. And I think that starts with education, but it also starts with the mind map of what is important in society. And if you look at our leaders globally, they're not thinking about this from it's here, we have to adapt. They're thinking about it, I'm going to stop it. And that never really works out very well.
What about artist development? Like, I was listening to this clip the other day, and Andre 3000's talking about, like, some of the, why a lot of hip-hop music, and according to this discussion, sounds kind of the same nowadays. And he makes this argument where he says, well, if you look at Outkast in the early days, if they sounded like everyone else too, they weren't ready. They had years of refining their craft before they came out with that album, before they came out with their sound. Now, and I'm not picking on AI, I just mean with technology in general. Somebody, put something out pretty quickly if they choose to, right? Not judging anybody, but what do you think about artist development in general? Now that you can just go to market so quick, and that's not even AI, it could be technology, whatever. Like Andre struck me with that one. I'm like, Outkast not sounding like Outkast is a thing to me.
Right. So Peter Gabriel has this great line. He says, the one thing you can't stop is the exponential rate of continuing change, right? And it is one of my favorite quotes of his, and I absolutely agree with it. And so, but what's interesting is one of the reasons that all sounds the same is they're using the same training data or the same source files, right? And so it's just like AI and artist development. The way artists become, one of my favorite stories is from Rick Rubin and a band called System of a Down. And they were sitting in his studio working on, they couldn't come up with the lyric for this one part of the song, and he said, walk over the bookshelf, pull a book off, and read me the first thing you read. And it was like a prayer from the Bible. The guy had never read the Bible. It's not his religious choice.
Yes.
It ends up in the song. It's at a powerful moment in the song, unexpectedly, because it's not there, it's not his cultural reference. It's not. And those are that serendipity, that tangential thinking, that is a thing a machine, I don't think is going to, for a very long time, be very good at. What I will say is that the acceleration from standing start to mediocrity or homogeneity is much faster now. And so that's kind of an interesting thing, because it means good enough for things that don't matter. We don't have a lot of work for people who do mediocre things.
Interesting.
And that is a problem, because our society is a pyramid that's built on the majority of people contributing to society
80-20.
Doing mediocrity or homogeneity as their primary contribution to society. And in this world, the machine and the systems may replace a lot of that function. And we haven't worked out what that means. We also, our whole economic system is predicated on a lot of people working very hard for a few people to benefit. And I think that is a systemic problem where the machines take over a lot of that work, which is the way we value people's value of their contribution.
What it means is we got to step our game up.
Or we have to change the measures. It's probably a combination of both.
Sure.
I'll never forget, because I'm neurodiverse, but I'm also very intelligent, I could go into math, and from pattern matching, I would be able to take a multi-choice. I've got to have a perfect score on the SAT.
Wow.
And they were like, how did you do this? Because you can't add. I was like, well, it was really easy to tell which one was the right answer.
Right.
And they couldn't, the way my brain worked is different than anyone else taking the test. They were sure I was cheating. Like, they made me take it 3 times. Got a perfect score every time.
Wow.
And then they finally were like, wow.
You were like the original.
Well, this is actually very common among neurodiverse people, and it's a rising trend that we recognize these people. At least one of my daughters, probably 2 of them, are very neurodiverse. And you know, my middle daughter really struggled with reading for a while, but she now gets excellent grades. She's incredibly smart, but reading, it wasn't that linear consumption of word after word wasn't the way she grokked information.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned you're working on another company right now. Talk to me about that.
So I have a new company. We're sort of in stealth, but I'll talk a little bit about it from a high level.
For sure.
So the company's called Kimono. I've had the idea for more than 10 years, but we started the company really 3 months ago. We raised about $250,000 to date. We've just started raising money.
Yeah.
And we are attacking what I think is one of the most difficult problems around AI and data. So contact data, that's phone books,
Yes.
is the most prevalent used data type in the world. It has the worst data integrity. The way we architect the data models, the way we manage it, the way we, keeping local copies in 3 or 4 databases on your local device, this is nonsense, right? You would never do this in any other data type. And we think this is secure, but it's actually the least secure, has the least data integrity, it's the least accurate. So I guarantee you, if I open up your phone and look up people's phone numbers, you have between 3 and 15 phone books on your phone. And the data for a single person across those phone books will be different. It won't be correct.
For sure.
We're going to solve that. That's our first problem we're solving. The second problem we're solving is there's a business called Plaid that does it for financial data, is syncing and syndicating that information across platform, network, and device. And then from that, those 2 things, we start to have a real sense of being able to think about identity and content within a really secure self-sovereign model, as opposed to making money from selling this to third parties, which is what everyone else does. And so you're going to trust me in a way you wouldn't trust Google, Amazon, Facebook, because I'm not in the business of monetizing that data from third parties. I'm in the business of providing you a service and helping you manage your data. And it's a really interesting business. If I'm correct, it's $1 billion business. If I'm not, it's still a super fun problem to solve.
What's it like right now being an AI founder? Like, so many ideas, so many things going on.
So it's funny. So it's my 20th startup, as I said. Some of them
especially
won, some lost.
Having 20, startups. Like, what's it like?
Startups are always the same. You've got this idea. You begin with a thesis. Your thesis is sometimes correct, sometimes wrong. The way you're going to talk to customers changes and iterates. It's always the same, right? And there's always money for interesting ideas. The more times you've done it, you can skip some of the wrong steps. Like I don't go and try and raise money from people who aren't investing in pre-product startups. Like there's a whole group of people I don't go and pitch. And I understand the game a little more, so I'm less likely to give away a huge chunk of the company before I have a product in market. The flip side is I'm 56 years old, and I'm working harder than I've worked in a decade. And I work very hard.
How does that make you feel?
It's awesome, but it's also like I'm not as good a physical shape as I was then, so it's much harder, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so the parts of it I have an advantage because I've done this so many times. I can do less and be more effective. But it is also, I both love and hate this part, which is the early part where you don't have any money and you have to you're constantly hustling. What I love is I haven't felt this excited about a time in technology since the first time I saw the World Wide Web. I was on the internet for almost a decade before the World Wide Web existed. My dad was worked at an aerospace play firm, and we had an internet connection early. And I run a BBS. If you don't know what that is, Google it. And so I was very network savvy and very distributed computing savvy, but I was not, like the browser for me, the first time I saw it, I thought it was HyperCard. I actually didn't understand this was a network system. And then once I understood this was HyperCard over a network, my brain exploded because I understood what that meant for the future. And this is sort of
What year was this roughly, just for the audience?
The World Wide Web?
Yeah, well, when you were on, like this is...
I was on the internet in the 70s and 80s, and I saw a version of Mosaic. I don't know.
I'm just curious because most people they've only heard of if they didn't have, if that wasn't in their family,
Netscape
the first thing was
yet.
AOL or hearing
this
is like
way
before that.
Right? I mean, I remember getting an AOL account I was on CompuServe before that, and I had a CompuServe was this thing. I tour with the Beach Boys, which is one of the things we talked about here. And so when I was on tour, I had a modem, and I could dial up on CompuServe and message my father and my family and my friends.
You were the coolest person ever. They're like, what is this guy doing?
No, I would write emails. I had like email romances with like I convinced women to get this CompuServe on, and they use their parents' fax line to like send me
You were
love mail.
So far ahead.
Yeah.
That's so far advanced back then. You're like,
Now you can tell ChatGPT to write your girlfriend a message every day, and so.
Note to self, I like it.
It works great till she gets some from someone else, and then you're toast.
Same data, right? That's messed up.
That's good. So what's really interesting about this business is everyone expects me to be doing something around generative AI, and I am talking to some firms about joining their boards, although I haven't done it yet. I think if you think about the big problems around data and AI, contact data, you can't build a smart agent. You can't build any personalized services without knowing who someone is. And none of the existing players are trusted enough or capable of doing this. So you really need an independent third party, and that's probably us or someone like us.
Yeah.
And I also sort of, I get attracted by big problems that are hard. Everyone thinks this is too hard, which is why I like it, because it's hard.
Wow, I think that's a good way to end it, Titus. If somebody wants to continue to follow your journey, follow the companies, connect, how do they do that?
So the best way to find me, my Twitter account on X.com, is at Richard Titus. On almost every other platform is RxDXT. On LinkedIn, it's RxDXT. On Instagram, it's RxDXT.
Yeah.
The company's called Kimono.network as of now. We're working on getting another domain. We're very much in stealth, but if you're interested in investing or learning more, just reach out, and I'd be happy to give you a conversation.
Awesome, Titus. Well, hey, appreciate you taking some time out of the conference to come over and stop in. And for everybody watching, just so you know, we'll put all of Titus's information in the show notes and the website and all that other good stuff so that you can follow along and connect with him as well. If you haven't done this yet, don't forget, hit that subscribe or that follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new stories, and hopefully new inspiration that can help you along the way in your journey. So hit that subscribe or follow button, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.